The rustle of leaves underfoot, the dappled sunlight, the illusion of escape. Parks, sanctuaries of green in our concrete world. Or are they something else entirely when dusk settles? Welcome, wanderer, to Nightmare True Horror. Tonight, we tread the overgrown paths of 7 true tales, where the beauty of nature concealed a terrifying reality. What unsettling encounters have you had in the quiet corners of your local park? Share your whispers from the woods in the comments. And if you feel that primal shiver when the familiar path takes an unexpected turn, subscribe. The wild places hold secrets, and the most disturbing ones often lie just off the beaten track, waiting for the curious or the unlucky. Let's venture forth. We were only going to spend an afternoon at Blue Ridge State Park. Sandwiches, sunscreen, and a blanket by the lake. It was supposed to be simple, relaxing, carefree. My best friend Katie needed it after a rough breakup. And honestly, so did I. She packed her favorite snacks, hummus, pretzels, fruit salad, and insisted we put our phones away to disconnect. It felt wholesome, safe. We found our spot at a picnic table near the lake, shaded by towering pine trees. Families grilled nearby. Children splashed in shallow water, and couples walked hand in hand along the trails. The sky stretched above, clear and untroubled. I still replay that peaceful image whenever I close my eyes. Katie laughed as she kicked off her sandals, twirling barefoot on the grass, her blonde hair catching sunlight. Everything was perfect until she decided to walk toward the bathrooms near the parking lot. She smiled and waved. "Be right back," she mouthed. I waved lazily, not realizing I'd never see her again. Minutes stretched. Katie wasn't back. Restless, I checked my watch. 20 minutes. Something felt off. I scanned the area. The families had started to leave. A shadow crawled slowly across the table, casting the afternoon in colder hues. My heart quickened as I rose, peering toward the trail she'd taken. The bathroom was empty when I arrived. My breath echoed off tile walls as panic pricked my chest. "Katie?" I called out, the quietness swallowing my voice. A single faucet dripped in response. Walking quickly back, scanning every face, I dialed Katie's phone. Straight to voicemail. That's when I saw him. A man standing near the trees, dark jacket despite the heat, watching me. I looked away instinctively, the sensation of being watched prickling my neck. When I looked again, he was gone. I asked around, but no one remembered seeing Katie leave. Fear bloomed rapidly in my chest, calling the park rangers. My voice trembled. Within minutes, the picnic site swarmed with officials, and the quiet afternoon dissolved into an anxious search. Twilight came with no answers. 2 days later, they found Katie's phone. Dead battery, cracked screen, in a stranger's backpack at a local gas station. Security footage showed a man in his late 30s, wearing the same dark jacket I had seen, paying for gas. He was identified quickly. Michael Grayson, a man with a string of petty arrests and a history of mental health evaluations. They found him living in a rusted RV, parked deep in the woods outside town. He claimed he'd found the phone on a park bench and planned to sell it. Nothing more, but he lied about where he'd been, and they arrested him. Despite an extensive search, Katie remained missing. Unable to sleep, unable to forget, I began my own quiet investigation. I drove repeatedly to Blue Ridge, searching the woods, calling Katie's name until my voice broke. Weeks blurred into months, yet nothing emerged. No clues, no closure, only silence and darkness. Then, an anonymous text lit my phone one night. A single image, the picnic area. My pulse quickened. Who sent this? I stared at the screen. Heart hammering. Under the photo, a simple message appeared. She wasn't the first. I froze. Then another text came through. Meet me at the park. Midnight. Alone. Fear curled through my chest. Icy fingers squeezing my lungs. But desperation outweighed common sense. Midnight at the lake felt alien, oppressive. Trees loomed like sentinels. Every sound, a rustle, a snapped twig, echoed unnaturally loud. My breath fogged in the chilly air as I waited. Suddenly, footsteps behind me. Heavy, deliberate. Turn around slowly. I did. A flashlight shone in my face, blindingly bright. Then it lowered, revealing a familiar face. Officer Danvers, one of the first responders from Katie's disappearance. You sent the text. My voice cracked. He nodded. His eyes held something guarded, haunted. You deserve the truth. I shivered. What truth? Michael Grayson didn't take your friend, he said quietly, his voice strained. He's just a scapegoat. My heart stopped. Then who? His gaze flickered to the trees, fearful. It's someone else. Someone we know. Someone connected. Katie isn't alone. This happens every few years. Always young women. Always covered up. Anger and terror surged simultaneously. Who are you talking about? His expression hardened. People with power. People who make sure the truth never gets out. Grayson was convenient. They pinned it on him. But they know he didn't do it. Who's they? My throat burned. Before he could reply, a sharp crack echoed through the darkness. A gunshot. Danvers yacked violently, eyes widening in shock before collapsing at my feet. Breath rasping, blood seeping darkly through his uniform. I spun, screaming for help into the darkness. No response. Just silence and rustling branches. The shadows watching, breathing. Panicked, I knelt beside him, his eyes desperate, fading. He grabbed my wrist weakly, gasping, blood bubbling from his lips. Run, he whispered urgently. They're here. And I did run, through trees, blindly crashing forward. Terrified sobs caught in my throat. Footsteps thundered behind me, voices calling my name, familiar yet monstrous. The trail twisted sharply inside me. They knew me. I'd trusted them. Branches tore my skin, dirt slick underfoot, lungs burning, vision blurring. I stumbled onto the road, flagging down a passing truck. The driver called police immediately. They found nothing. No officer, no blood, just empty forest. Danvers vanished, officially transferred. But I knew better. Grayson's trial proceeded quietly, quickly. I testified, but my words felt empty. He stared at me as they sentenced him, eyes dull, resigned, and somehow, deep in my bones, I knew he was innocent. Katie never resurfaced. Her parents moved away. Friends drifted off, uncomfortable. Everyone wanted to forget. But I couldn't. Nights turned endless. Sleep fragmented by whispers in the dark, memories of gunshots and Danvers' panicked eyes. Then one night, another anonymous message flashed on my phone, chillingly brief. You should have kept quiet. They're watching now. I shut the blinds, checked locks compulsively, yet in the dark corners of my mind, I knew whoever took Katie, whoever silenced Danvers, still lived nearby, walking free, smiling politely in supermarkets and post offices, their horrors neatly tucked beneath everyday masks. And maybe, when they decide it's necessary, I'll disappear too. Maybe soon. Because I've started noticing cars lingering outside my house at night. Strange clicking noises on phone calls. Friends whispering. Eyes darting nervously. I know too much. I see too much. And deep down, in the darkest hours, I wonder if Katie's final thought, like mine every night, is how terrifyingly ordinary evil can appear. The first time Daisy refused to go down the East Trail, I chalked it up to fatigue. My 3-year-old Labrador had been running circles around the dog park for an hour before our usual trail walk. So when she planted her paws at the entrance to the wooded path and whined, I simply turned us around and headed home. The second time, I was concerned. Daisy wasn't just reluctant. She was terrified. Her tail tucked between her legs, hackles raised. She pulled so hard against her leash that her collar nearly slipped over her head. That wasn't like her. Daisy loved the East Trail with its dense canopy and shattering squirrels. What's wrong, girl? I knelt beside her, running my hand through her golden fur. She whined again, eyes fixed on something beyond the trail entrance. I followed her gaze but saw nothing unusual. Just the familiar dirt path disappearing into the trees, dappled with late afternoon sunlight. There's nothing there, I assured her, though a chill ran up my spine despite the warm May air. I let her drag me home that day, but the incident nagged at me. I'm Alex Weber, 32, a data analyst who moved to Millfield 18 months ago after my divorce. The town park had become my sanctuary, a place to clear my head after long hours staring at spreadsheets. And Daisy was my compass, always eager to explore every inch of the sprawling grounds. Until the East Trail. The third time it happened, I decided to investigate. This time, I came prepared. Pepper spray in my pocket and my phone fully charged. I dropped Daisy off at home after our usual round at the dog park, then drove back alone as the sun began its descent. The park was nearly empty when I arrived. Just a few joggers on the main path and a couple packing up a light picnic. I nodded at the park ranger locking up the restrooms as I passed. Heading in kind of late, he commented, glancing at his watch. Park closes at dusk. Just a quick walk, I assured him. I won't be long. I won't be long. He shrugged and continued with his tasks. The East Trail entrance looked perfectly ordinary. A simple dirt path flanked by tall oaks and a wooden sign marking the trailhead. No yellow caution tape, no warning signs. Nothing that would explain Daisy's terror. I took a deep breath and stepped onto the path. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees as I ventured deeper into the woods. Probably just the dense tree cover blocking the evening sun, I told myself, though the silence was unsettling. No bird song, no rustling leaves, just the crunch of my footsteps on the path. A quarter mile in, I noticed the first oddity. A small pile of stones arranged in a too-perfect triangle beside the trail. I'd walked this path dozens of times and never seen it before. Someone's idea of trail art, perhaps. I crouched down to examine it, then straightened quickly when a twig snapped somewhere behind me. "Hello?" I called, my voice sounding unnaturally loud in the silence. No response. The path curved ahead, and as I rounded the bend, the smell hit me, metallic and rancid. My stomach clenched. I nearly turned back, but curiosity pushed me forward. That's when I saw it. A red leather glove hanging from a low branch, gently swaying though there was no breeze. Dark stains covered the fingers and palm, dripping onto the ground below where the earth was discolored. Blood. Not fresh, but not old either. My heart thudded against my ribs as I fumbled for my phone. No signal. Of course. A sudden rustling came from the undergrowth to my right. I froze, pepper spray now clutched in my trembling hand. A rabbit darted across the path and I let out a shaky laugh at my own jumpiness. I stepped closer to the glove, careful not to touch it. It was expensive looking. Supple leather with small pearl buttons at the wrist. A woman's glove, and it had been placed there deliberately, hung at eye level like a macabre Christmas ornament. The sound of footsteps behind me sent ice through my veins. Heavy, measured steps crushing leaves and twigs. Not a rabbit this time. I turned slowly, my finger poised over the pepper spray nozzle. Nothing. The path behind me was empty in the fading light, but the footsteps continued closer now, coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Who's there?" My voice cracked. This isn't funny. The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was worse, then a whisper that seemed to come from the trees themselves. "You shouldn't be here." I ran. Branches clawed at my face and arms as I sprinted down the path, no longer caring about stealth or dignity. My lungs burned, eyes watering as I struggled to see in the gathering darkness. When I burst out of the trail entrance, I doubled over, gasping for air. The main park was deserted now, the ranger's truck gone from its usual spot. Sunset had come and gone while I was in the woods. I speed-walked to my car, constantly glancing over my shoulder. Only when I was safely locked inside with the engine running did I allow myself to breathe normally. That night, I convinced myself I'd overreacted. The glove was strange, sure, but probably just a tasteless prank. The voice had been the wind in the trees. The footsteps, my imagination, or perhaps another walker I hadn't seen. But the next morning, I called the police anyway. A glove? The officer sounded bored. "Was anything stolen from you, sir?" "No, but it was covered in blood, hanging in a tree." He took down my information with audible disinterest. "We'll send someone to check it out." Officer Reyes called me back that afternoon. "We checked the East Trail, Mr. Weber. No glove, no blood, no evidence of any disturbance." "That's impossible," I insisted. "It was there, hanging from a branch about 5 feet off the ground." "Well, it's not there now," he replied. "But we'll make a note of it. Sometimes kids play pranks." I thanked him and hung up, unsatisfied. That evening, I pulled up local news on my laptop. Nothing about missing persons or violent crimes in Millfield. Our crime blotter typically consisted of shoplifting and the occasional do-I. I should have left it alone. Should have found another park, another trail. But 2 days later, I went back. This time, I went in the morning. The East Trail looked different in daylight. Less menacing, more mundane. Birds chirped overhead. Squirrels chattered in the branches. I found the spot where the glove had been. But Officer Reyes was right. It was gone. It was gone. No blood on the ground. No sign it had ever been there. I was about to leave when I noticed a small scrap of red caught in the bark of the tree. I tugged it free. A tiny piece of leather, the same shade as the glove. My phone dinged with an incoming text, startling me. Signal was working today. The message was from an unknown number. Leave it alone. I stared at the screen, my mouth dry. A coincidence. Had to be. Another text. She deserved it. I blocked the number with shaking fingers and hurried back to my car. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying my visits to the East Trail, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. Around 2 a.m., I gave up on sleep and opened my laptop. I hadn't been thorough enough in my search. This time, I went back a full year in the local news archives. And there it was, from 11 months ago. Local woman missing. Police seek information. The article was brief. Catherine Mercer, 42, had disappeared after leaving her yoga class. Her car was found in the parking lot of Millfield Park. The accompanying photo showed a smiling brunette in her early 40s. I scrolled through follow-up articles. The case had gone cold quickly. No body, no witnesses, no suspects. Catherine had been going through a contentious divorce, but her husband had an alibi. The police had conducted extensive searches of the park and surrounding woods without finding any trace of her. One detail caught my eye. In the last photo taken of her at her yoga studio, Catherine had been wearing a red leather coat. Sleep was impossible now. At first light, I took Daisy for her morning walk, giving the East Trail a wide berth. When we returned home, a police cruiser was parked in front of my house. Officer Reyes stood on my porch, his expression grim. "Mr. Weber, we need to talk." My stomach dropped. About the glove. About why you're so interested in Catherine Mercer. I blinked in confusion. What? Someone reported seeing you looking up information about her. And you've been asking questions around town. I hadn't been asking questions around town. I only just learned about her last night. He didn't look convinced. You moved to Millfield right after she disappeared. That's a coincidence, I insisted. I came here for a job. Mind if we come in? Another officer stepped out from behind the cruiser. I let them in, my mind racing. They asked about my movements, my history, my interest in the park. I told them everything. About Daisy's fear, the glove, the texts. Officer Reyes took notes while his partner wandered around my living room, studying my bookshelves. "You have a lot of books on local history," he commented. "I'm interested in where I live," I replied, anxiety building. They left after an hour, warning me to stay away from the East Trail while they looked into things. It wasn't an official warning, but the message was clear. That afternoon, I received another text from a different unknown number. "You're getting warmer." I deleted it without replying and tried to focus on work. But my mind kept drifting to Catherine Mercer and the red glove. Before I knew it, I was back on my laptop, digging deeper into her case. Catherine had been a real estate agent specializing in historic properties. She'd handled several controversial sales in Millfield, including the old paper mill that was now being converted into luxury apartments. The development had faced fierce opposition from environmental groups because of the mill's history of chemical dumping. 2 days after the police visit, I woke to find my front door wide open. Nothing was missing, but my books on local history had been rearranged, and on my coffee table lay a small pearl button. I called Officer Reyes immediately. "Someone broke into my house. Are you sure you didn't leave the door unlocked?" he asked. "I'm sure," I said firmly. "And they left something, a pearl button, like the ones on the glove." Silence on the line. Then, "I'll be right over." He arrived alone this time, his manner less accusatory. He bagged the button and took photos of my door, though there were no signs of forced entry. "I'd recommend getting a security system," he said, "and maybe staying somewhere else for a few days." "You think I'm in danger?" He hesitated. "Let's just say Catherine Mercer was investigating something before she disappeared." Something about the old paper mill and the development company. If you're stumbling onto the same information, what was she investigating? I've said too much already. He handed me his card. Call me directly if anything else happens. That night, I stayed at a hotel on the edge of town. I left Daisy with a neighbor, not wanting to risk her safety. Sleep eluded me again as I pored over everything I could find about the paper mill development. The company behind it, Nexus Development, had purchased the property for a fraction of its value. After environmental testing, supposedly cleared it for residential use. But Catherine had been looking into those test results before she disappeared, according to a brief mention in one of the follow-up articles about her case. The next morning, I did something foolish. I drove to the old paper mill. The property was surrounded by a chain-link fence bearing no trespassing signs, but the main gate was open for construction vehicles. I parked across the street and watched workers coming and going. After an hour, I spotted a familiar face. The park ranger from last week, dressed in a Nexus Development polo shirt. My phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. The East Trail. Midnight. The East Trail. Come alone, if you want to know what happened to her. The line went dead. I knew it was a trap. Knew I should call Officer Reyes. But what if it wasn't? What if someone really had information? I spent the day in a haze of anxiety, checking my locks repeatedly and jumping at every sound. As midnight approached, reason finally prevailed. I called Officer Reyes. Someone wants me to meet them on the East Trail at midnight, I said. I think it's about Catherine Mercer. Don't go, he said immediately. I'll send a patrol car. No, I replied. If they see police, they won't show. Let me go, but have officers nearby. He reluctantly agreed, giving me strict instructions to stay at the trail entrance until he arrived to wire me. At 11:45 p.m., I parked at the now familiar lot. The park was eerily quiet, the beam of my flashlight cutting through dense fog that had rolled in with the night. Officer Reyes was waiting in an unmarked car. We'll have officers stationed along the trail, he said as he fitted me with a small microphone. Just get them talking and get out. Don't try to be a hero. I nodded, my mouth too dry for words. The East Trail looked like the entrance to another world, the fog swirling around the trees. I stepped in, the beam of my flashlight barely penetrating the mist. The silence was absolute. No insects, no distant traffic. Not even the sound of my own breathing seemed to register. I walked slowly, following the now familiar path. The pile of stones was gone. The spot where the glove had hung was just another tree now. I checked my watch. 12:01 a.m. Hello, I called softly. I'm here. No response. Minutes ticked by. 12:10. Nothing. Then, a voice behind me. You're persistent, Mr. Weber. I whirled around. The park ranger stood there, but he wasn't in uniform or Nexus Polo now. He wore plain clothes, his hands in his pockets. You? I managed. You sent the texts? No. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. But I've been watching you. You asked too many questions. About Catherine Mercer? About the East Trail? About things that don't concern you. Where is she? I asked, hoping the wire was picking this up. He tilted his head. Where we put all the problems. Under the foundation of Building C. The concrete's being poured tomorrow. I took a step back. The police know I'm here, do they? His smile widened. Officer Reyes sends his regards. My blood turned to ice. What? Nexus Development pays very well for cooperation. More than a police salary, certainly. I turned to run, but he was faster. His hand clamped over my mouth. Something sharp pricked my neck. The world began to blur. As consciousness faded, I heard sirens in the distance. Not from the park entrance, but from the road behind the mill property. Then darkness. I woke in a hospital bed, an IV in my arm and Detective Collins. Not Officer Reyes at my bedside. You're lucky, she said. The state police were already investigating Nexus and Officer Reyes. When you called him, he called his real boss. We were monitoring their communications. Catherine Mercer? I croaked. We're excavating at the mill right now. Her face was grim. But there will be justice for her, and for the others. 3 environmental activists who disappeared over the last 5 years. All cases Reyes handled. I was released 2 days later with a mild concussion and a warning to leave the investigation to the professionals. The story broke on the local news. Corruption, corporate greed, murder. Nexus executives and Officer Reyes were arrested. The Ranger, a former security contractor with a record, was found dead in a motel room, apparently by suicide. They found Catherine Mercer's remains exactly where the Ranger said they would, under the foundation site of Building C, wrapped in plastic with her red leather coat, still partially intact. One glove missing. I still walk Daisy in the park, but we never go near the East Trail. Sometimes, when the wind is right, I think I can hear footsteps on that path, and sometimes, in my dreams, I see Catherine Mercer hanging her red glove as a warning to those who might follow her path. But in my waking hours, I remind myself that the real monsters don't hide in the woods. They hide in plain sight, behind badges and business suits, trusting that our fear of the unknown will keep us from looking too closely at what's right in front of us. Daisy, it seems, was wiser than all of us. Dawn in Hartman Park, tests like you, diesel fumes, and damp earth. For 6 months, I, Sam Carter, have run the same 3-mile loop every morning since the divorce ripped my life apart, past the duck pond where mist curls like ghosts, over the footbridge creaking under my steps, around the gnarled oak locals call the Widow for its claw-like branches, routine as a cage. But after losing my job as a programmer and my wife to a lawyer named Greg, it's the only cage I control. This morning, a shoe stopped me cold. Neon pink, Pristina, a Hoka Carbon X3, limited edition, the kind my physical therapist swore by for shin splints. It sat mid-trail, laces still tied, no dirt, no wear. My stomach twisted. The news had plastered Emily Shaw's face everywhere. 24, jogger, vanished last week from this park. Last seen in those exact Hokas. I crouched, heart thudding, and pocketed it. Evidence, maybe. Then I saw the dirt, fresh earth mounded beside the trail. Shovel marks raked through like claw scars. The air smelled of wet soil and decay. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Search continues for missing jogger. 24. Emily's thumbnail grinned, her Hokas blazing pink against the park's green. Find something, Sam? Carl, the groundskeeper, leaned on his rake, his gloves caked in mud that glistened black in the dawn light, his eyes shadowed under a frayed cap flicked to my pocket. Just litter, I lied, hand over the shoe. He nodded at the mound. Gophers, pesky bastards. But behind him, a hole yawned waist deep, its edges jagged, too large for gophers. A faint metallic glint winked from its depths. Detective Rui's office reeked of burnt coffee and stale donuts. She barely glanced at the Hoka before tossing it into a drawer. We've had 20 shoe tips. None panned out. Shaw's is our guy. Violent history, bar fights, the works. Her words felt hollow. I'd Googled Carl after leaving the park. His record, arrested 2009, grave desecration. Charges dropped, no details, just a mugshot of those same shadowed eyes. The lie curdled in my gut. I didn't tell Ruiz about the hole, or Carl's gloves. At dusk, I returned, driven by a nagging itch. The park was silent, save for the hum of cicadas and the rustle of leaves. The hole was filled now, packed tight, a teddy bear and wilted roses propped against it. Memorial or mockery, I couldn't tell. Carl's truck idled nearby, its headlights off. I snapped photos, my hands shaking. The engine revved, headlights pinned me like a deer. Carl's silhouette leaned out the window, his cap tilted. Run. I sprinted, the shoe bouncing in my pocket, branches snagging my jacket. The truck's growl faded, but my pulse didn't slow until I reached my apartment. Emily's Instagram was still public. Her last post, new kicks for new beginnings, hashtags, #Hartman Park, #single life. I recognized her now. She'd been in my running group, always chatting about her PRAs. The comments were a cesspool of trolls and flirts, but one stood out. That groundskeeper Carl posted 3 days before she vanished. Watch your step. Delayed it hours later, but I'd screenshotted it. I called Ruiz. Voicemail. That night I couldn't sleep. Emily's smile haunted me, her Hokas too bright, too alive. At 2:30 a.m., I checked the park's webcam. A grainy feed locals used to spot deer. It showed the widow, and there, by its roots, A wheelbarrow tipped with fresh dirt. A figure moved, humming faintly. I grabbed my headlamp and drove back. The park gates creaked at 3 a.m. The air thick with the scent of wet grass and rot. My headlamp caught dirt spilling from Carl's wheelbarrow as he worked near the widow. He hummed, "You are my sunshine." His voice low, almost tender. The hole glinted, something metallic. I crept closer. Emily's Fitbit. Its screen, cracked but glowing faintly. Carl froze. "You're persistent, Sam." His rake swung. I dodged, but my foot caught a root, and I fell into the grave. It wasn't empty. Emily's other hookah poked through the soil, her foot still in it, pale and bloated. Dirt clung to her ankle like a second skin. I gagged, scrambling back, my headlamp flickering. Carl loomed above, shovel raised. She wouldn't stop posting, luring them here with her smiles. Her shoes. My park. His voice was calm, like he was explaining a chore. The shovel gleamed, crusted with old blood. I kicked dirt into his face and bolted, weaving through trees, branches, clawing my cheeks. His footsteps thudded behind, heavy, relentless. My lungs burned, but I didn't stop until I hit the footbridge, where I crouched, trembling, as his flashlight beam swept past. Sirens wailed. Ruiz's cruiser skidded through the grass, lights flashing. Carl's silhouette vanished into the trees, his rake abandoned. They found 7 more graves, each marked with trinkets, a scarf, a water bottle, a keychain. All joggers, all women, all buried near the widow. Ruiz closed the case. Shaw's ex confessed. Jealous type, snapped. I didn't believe her. The ex mugshot didn't have Carl's eyes. Weeks passed. I tried to run again, sticking to the loop, but the park felt wrong. Too quiet, too watchful. Last night, jogging past the widow, I froze. A fresh mound rose by the trail, small but deliberate. Carl's rake leaned against it, his gloves folded neatly on top. Mud still wet. My phone buzzed. A notification from a groundskeeper call. A new account. No profile pic. The post showed my Nikes, left by the trail, laces untied. The caption, "New beginnings need new shoes." Hartman Park single life. I deleted my Instagram, moved to a new apartment, stopped running. But tonight my phone lit up again. A direct message from Emily's account. Timestamped now. "Keep running, Sam. He likes the chase." I swear I hear, "You are my sunshine" outside my window. Final note. The loop preys on the illusion of safety and routine, and the curated personas that make us targets. The real horror isn't the monster in the park. It's the crowd scrolling past his posts, liking, sharing, digging. Refresh, repeat, run. I slowed my pace, sneakers scuffing the sidewalk. The sedan's driver door hung slightly ajar, a crumpled coffee cup on the seat. Flies buzzed around the trunk, their hum a low drone. I glanced at the park, empty swings swaying in the breeze, the slide casting jagged shadows. My neighbor, Kim, a barista with a knack for gardening, jogged up, her ponytail bouncing. "Still there, huh?" she said, wrinkling her nose. "That smell's getting worse." "Yeah," I muttered, my stomach twisting. "Cops say it's not stolen, but no one's come for it." Kim frowned, her eyes flicking to the trunk. We stood there, the sweet stench curling around us, until she jogged off, promising to call the city again. I had headed home, but the car stayed in my head, its keys glinting like a dare. That night, I couldn't sleep. The park was visible from my bedroom window, the sedan a dark shape under the streetlight. Around 2 a.m., a guy thump echoed from the lot, sharp and heavy, like a trunk slamming shut. I bolted upright, heart racing, and peered out. The sedan's trunk was closed now, though I swore it had been cracked open earlier. A shadow moved near the car, tall and hunched, then vanished into the park's trees. My mouth went dry. I grabbed my phone, but the screen stayed black. No signal. Morning brought a gray drizzle. I walked to the park, a flashlight in my pocket, driven by a gnawing need to know. The smell was stronger, thick enough to taste. Flies swarmed the trunk, their wings a relentless buzz. I circled the car, noticing scratches on the trunk's lock. fresh and jagged, like someone had pried at it. A scrap of fabric, blue torn, hung from the bumper. It looked like the shirt Kim wore yesterday. My pulse hammered. I called her, but it went to voicemail. I knocked on Kim's door. 2 houses down. No answer. Her car was in the drive. Her garden tools scattered like she'd left in a hurry. I told myself she was at work, but my gut screamed otherwise. Back at the park, I spotted something new. A trail of disturbed gravel leading from the sedan into the woods. I followed it, the flashlight beam shaking in my hand. The trail ended at a clearing, where a pile of dirt looked freshly turned, too neat for nature. A faint whine came from the ground, muffled like something trapped. I dropped to my knees, clawing at the dirt. My fingers hit something hard. A wooden hatch, padlocked. The whine grew desperate, human. I sprinted home, called 911, and grabbed a crowbar. The operator told me to wait, but the sound haunted me. I pried the hatch open, the lock snapping, and shone my light down. A narrow tunnel stretched below, walls slick with mold. The smell, sweet, rotting, hit me like a wave. At the bottom, Kim lay bound, gagged, her eyes wide with terror. She whimpered, blood crusting her temple. I climbed down, hands trembling, and cut her ropes with my pocket knife. He's still here, she gasped, voice hoarse. Before I could ask who, a yee-scrapey echoed above. Boots on gravel. I killed the light, pulling Kim against the wall. The hatch creaked, and a man's silhouette loomed, his breath heavy, ragged. You can't take her, he growled, his voice low, possessive. He descended, a flashlight beam slicing the dark, a hunting knife glinting in his other hand. My heart pounded as I whispered to Kim to stay quiet. The man, tall, wiry, with a stained jacket, swept the beam closer. I recognized him. Gary, a loner who'd moved to the neighborhood last year, always tinkering his garage. He'd been at the park, watching kids play, his smile too wide. The beam grazed my shoe and he froze, head tilting. I lunged, swinging the crowbar, catching his wrist. The knife clattered, and Kim screamed, scrambling up the ladder. Gary roared, tackling me, his fingers clawing my throat. I kicked free, grabbing the knife, and slashed his leg, buying time to climb out. Kim and I ran, the park a blur of shadows. Sirens wailed in the distance as we reached my house, locking the door. Gary's footsteps pounded outside, then stopped. The cops arrived, swarming the park. They found the tunnel, Kim's blood, and a duffel in the sedan's trunk. Photos of her, me, other neighbors, all taken from a distance. Gary's house was a shrine. Walls of pictures, maps of our routines, a journal detailing his collection. He'd targeted loners, people no one would miss, to keep them in his tunnels. His motive, a twisted need to own their lives. Gary vanished. The cops flagged his car, his accounts, but he's a ghost. I moved to Denver, Kim to her sisters in Boulder. Last week, a package came. No address, just a photo of me at the park, taken that night, my face pale as I circled the sedan. On the back, in jagged scrawl, I'm not done. I check my locks, keep a bat by the door, but every car horn, every rustle, feels like Gary, waiting to finish his collection. The park's swings are still now, but I see that sedan in every shadow. Gary's out there, his knife ready, and my name's still on his list. My name is Leo, and I've always been drawn to forgotten places. Not for vandalism or cheap thrills, but for the stories they whisper. I'm an amateur photographer, and the way nature reclaims man-made structures, the peeling paint, the creeping ivy, it all speaks to me. Redwood Creek Park, sprawling and untamed on the edge of our city, was my favorite haunt. Most people stuck to the manicured picnic areas and paved trails. I preferred the deep woods, the overgrown paths that led to nowhere. Or so I thought. It was late autumn, the air crisp, the forest floor a carpet of rust-colored leaves. I was tracking a deer trail, hoping for a good shot when I saw it, almost swallowed by a dense thicket of rhododendrons. A small, dilapidated maintenance shed. It wasn't on any park map I'd ever seen. The wood was weathered to a silver gray. The tin roof buckled and rusted. A heavy, old-fashioned padlock hung on the door, but it was unlocked, the shackle eaten through by corrosion. The door groaned open with a sound like a dying breath, releasing a wave of musty air, damp earth, decaying leaves, and something else. A faint, acrid undertone I couldn't quite place. Inside, it was gloomy, shafts of weak sunlight piercing through cracks in the boarded-up window. Old tools lay scattered, a rusted rake, a shovel with a broken handle, coils of brittle hose. Standard abandoned shed stuff, but in the far corner, stacked haphazardly, were several large, clear plastic bags. They looked like oversized Ziplocs, but thicker, more industrial. My initial thought was that it was just old park supplies, or perhaps illegally dumped trash. But as I drew closer, my flashlight beam dancing over them, I saw the markings. Faded, black stenciled lettering. RCPD evidence, case hash, followed by a series of blurred, handwritten numbers and dates. Redwood Creek Police Department. My heart gave a little thump. These weren't just trash bags. Some were empty, crumpled and dusty. Others contained mundane items. A tattered baseball cap, a single muddy work boot, a broken pair of eyeglasses. Then I picked one up, the plastic crinkling loudly in the silence. Inside, nestled on a bed of yellowed cotton wool, was a child's handmade wooden toy car. One wheel missing, its bright blue paint chipped. A label attached to the bag read, Item hash 3, vicinity of Miller's Ravine, 4/17/1998. Miller's Ravine. I vaguely remembered hearing about a child who'd gone missing there years ago, a case that had eventually gone cold. A chill snaked down my spine. Another bag held a woman's silk scarf, intricately patterned, but stained with a dark rust-colored patch that made my stomach clench. The label was smudged, unreadable. A third contained a small, leather-bound diary, its pages warped by moisture. The ink bled into illegible Rorschach blots. Yet on one mostly intact page, a single desperate sentence was still visible. He said he loved me. But his eyes, the rest was a smear. This wasn't just forgotten evidence. This felt like a graveyard of lost stories, of unsolved pains. Why was it here? In this forgotten shed, miles from any police station. The acrid smell I'd noticed earlier seemed stronger now, mixed with the scent of old paper and something faintly metallic. I started taking photos, my hands surprisingly steady, driven by a strange compulsion to document this forgotten archive of sorrow. Over the next week, the shed became an obsession. I'd return during daylight hours, my camera, my only companion. I found more bags tucked under a rotting tarpaulin, a tarnished silver locket empty, a set of car keys attached to a faded teddy bear keychain, a single pristine white glove, eerily small. Each item was a silent scream. I started cross-referencing the legible case numbers and dates with online archives of local cold cases. Some matched, others yielded nothing, as if these tragedies had been erased from public memory too. One afternoon, as I was carefully examining a bag containing a cracked teacup with a delicate rose pattern, I heard a sound outside, a twig snapping. My head jerked up. I held my breath, heart hammering. The shed was deep in the park. I rarely saw another soul out this far. Footsteps slow and deliberate, crunched on the dry leaves. Approaching the shed, I doused my flashlight, plunging myself into near darkness, and pressed myself against the cold, damp wall, my mind racing. The door creaked open, a figure silhouetted against the brighter light of the doorway. An old man, stooped, but with a wiry strength. He wore a faded park ranger's uniform, though it looked decades out of style. He didn't seem surprised to see the door already open. He stepped inside, carrying a small canvas satchel. He moved with a quiet familiarity, his flashlight beam sweeping across the stacks of evidence bags. He wasn't a threat, not in the way I'd imagined. He looked sad. He stopped at a small, makeshift shelf I hadn't noticed before, upon which sat a few of the more poignant items, almost like a curated display. He reached into his satchel and pulled out a small, wilting bouquet of wildflowers, placing it gently beside the child's toy car. "They shouldn't be forgotten," he rasped, his voice thin and reedy, not directed at me, but at the silent occupants of the bags. He still hadn't seen me. My breath caught. I must have made a noise, because his head snapped towards my corner. His eyes, pale and clouded with age, widened slightly. He wasn't aggressive, just startled. Who's there? I stepped out slowly, my hands raised. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. I found this place. He stared at me for a long moment, his gaze searching. You're not from them? From who? The ones who forget, he said, a profound weariness in his voice. The ones who file things away until they turn to dust. These are people, their stories. He gestured to the bags. I was a ranger here for 40 years. Some of these, I was there when they were found, or when they were lost. His name was Arthur. He explained how, over decades, evidence from unsolved cases, especially those deemed minor or with no leads, would sometimes get misplaced in the park's old storage systems, eventually ending up here, in this forgotten shed, destined to be cleared out and incinerated. He couldn't bear it. So, he'd become their unofficial custodian, visiting them, tending to their memory in his own quiet way. The items he brought in his satchel were small tokens, a fresh flower, a polished stone, little acknowledgments. It's not right, what I do, he admitted, his gaze distant. But it felt less wrong than letting them vanish completely. His motive wasn't sinister. It was born of a deep, melancholic empathy, a refusal to let these lives be reduced to forgotten case numbers. The climax wasn't a physical confrontation, but a dawning, shared understanding of loss and memory. I showed him my photos. He told me some of the stories behind the items, his voice thick with emotion. The child with the toy car, whose name was Danny. The woman with the silk scarf, a local artist who'd vanished on a hike. I helped Arthur carry some of the more fragile bags to his small, nearby cabin. Not to keep, he insisted, but to protect from the shed's dampness, until he could figure out what to do. He was old, tired. He knew he couldn't be their keeper forever. The police were eventually, and anonymously, notified about the shed by me. When they investigated, Arthur was gone. The shed was mostly empty, just a few decayed, unidentifiable remnants. The official report called it improperly stored historical park materials. No mention of evidence, no cold cases reopened. It was cleaner that way. But I have my photographs, and I have the stories Arthur told me. Redwood Creek Park is still beautiful, but now its shadows seem deeper, its silences more profound. I often wonder about Arthur, and the heavy burden he carried. And I think about those bags, those whispers of lives interrupted. A haunting reminder that sometimes the most terrifying things are not monsters or ghosts, but the quiet, lingering echoes of real human sorrow, lost and almost forgotten in the deep. Undermahe. Or Yush. My name is Sarah, and until last spring, Elderwood Park was our family's happy place. My husband, David, and I would take our kids, 10-year-old Tom and 8-year-old Emily, almost every sunny weekend. It was a sprawling expanse of green on the edge of our quiet suburban town. Playgrounds, picnic spots, and, if you ventured far enough, dense, untamed woods, crisscrossed by little used hiking trails. It was in these woods that our happy place curdled into something else. It was a bright Saturday. While David set up our picnic near the creek, Tom and Emily, armed with the boundless energy of youth, decided they were explorers. We're going to find a secret fort, Mom, Tom declared, Emily echoing his adventurous spirit. I gave them the usual warnings. Stay within earshot. Don't wander too far off the main paths. An hour later, they burst back into our picnic spot, faces flushed with excitement, eyes wide. Mom! Dad! You have to see what we found. Emily tugged at my hand, practically vibrating. It's a secret garden. A real one. It's hidden behind these giant vines, like in a storybook, Tom added, his voice hushed with awe. Their enthusiasm was infectious. Leaving David with the sandwiches, I let them lead me. They plunged into a denser part of the woods I'd never explored, pushing past low-hanging branches and tangled undergrowth. Sure enough, a thick curtain of ancient gnarled vines, heavy with dark green leaves, concealed an opening, almost like a natural doorway. Tom, beaming, pulled aside a heavy section. See, the air inside was instantly cooler, damper. The sunlight struggled to penetrate the dense canopy above, casting the small circular clearing in a perpetual twilight. But this was no storybook garden. There were no flowers. Instead, arranged in a rough circle were things, crude figures, fashioned from sticks, twine, and what looked like strips of faded, muddy fabric. They were roughly human-shaped, some tall, some child-sized, their heads misshapen lumps of dried mud or bundled rags, bits of rusted metal, broken plastic, and what looked horrifyingly like clumps of matted hair were incorporated into their forms. Effigies, dozens of them, standing silent sentinel. A cold dread, sharp and immediate, pierced through me. "Kids," I said, my voice tight. "Maybe we shouldn't be in here." But Emily, oblivious, pointed. "Look, Mommy, they made little people." In the center of the circle of effigies, the earth was disturbed. Several patches, each roughly rectangular and small, looked like they'd been recently dug up and then hastily covered over. The soil was darker there, looser. A faint, cloying odor hung in the air. Damp earth, decay, and something else. Something metallic and faintly sweet that I couldn't quite place. It wasn't the scent of flowers. "This isn't a garden, sweetie," I managed, pulling Emily back. "This is someone's private space. We should go." My heart was hammering. The silence in the clearing was profound, broken only by the drip of moisture from the leaves above. It felt wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. I scanned the perimeter, my skin prickling with a sudden, intense feeling of being watched. The crude eyes of the effigies, some just dark smudges, others glinting with embedded shards of glass, seemed to follow me. Tom, older and more perceptive, caught my fear. "What is this place, Mom?" he whispered, his earlier excitement gone. "I don't know," I said, ushering them back towards the vine curtain. "But we're not staying." We rejoined David, and I tried to sound casual as I described what we'd found, downplaying the creepiness for the kids' sake. But later that night, after they were asleep, I told him everything. The unsettling figures, the disturbed earth, the feeling of being watched. He was skeptical at first. Probably just some weird art project, Sarah. Or teenagers messing around. "No, David," I insisted. "It wasn't like that. It felt intentional. And those dug-up patches, they looked like graves. Small ones." The word hung in the air between us. Sleep eluded me. The image of those stick figures, those blank, watching eyes, was seared into my mind. The next day, a grim curiosity overriding my fear, I went back to Elderwood Park alone. I told myself I needed to see it again, to confirm if it was as sinister as I remembered, or if my imagination had run wild. Finding the clearing again was harder without the kids leading the way. When I finally pushed through the vines, my heart pounding, the scene was unchanged. The effigies stood silent. The disturbed earth remained, but there was something new. Lying on one of the freshly turned patches of soil was a small, muddy, one-eyed teddy bear. It hadn't been there yesterday. A fresh wave of nausea hit me. This wasn't teenagers. This felt like a ritual, a memorial, or something far worse. As I stood there, frozen, a twig snapped nearby, deeper in the woods behind the clearing. I whirled around. Nothing, just the dense trees, the shifting shadows. But the feeling of being watched was overwhelming now. A physical pressure on my skin. I backed out of the clearing, my breath coming in ragged gasps, and didn't stop running until I reached the main park road. We called the police. I described what we'd found, my voice shaking. 2 officers met me at the park entrance. I led them back, or tried to. The woods seemed to shift, the paths confusing me. When we finally found what I thought was the spot, the curtain of vines was there, but the clearing beyond was different. The effigies were gone. All of them. The disturbed earth had been smoothed over, covered with fresh leaves and pine needles, almost perfectly camouflaged. There was no sign that anything had ever been amiss, except for a faint, lingering smell of damp earth. and that sickly, sweet odor. And half buried under a bush near the vine entrance I saw it, the one-eyed teddy bear. I pointed it out to the officers. They bagged it, but their faces were impassive. "Ma'am?" one of them said, his tone polite but dismissive. "Are you sure this is the place? Kids have active imaginations. Sometimes they build forts, leave toys behind." I knew what I'd seen. I knew what my children had seen. I knew what my children had seen. The official park response was that it was likely transient activity or a prank. But the secret garden was never found again by park officials, despite their searches. It was as if it had been swallowed by the woods, or had never existed at all. We don't go to Elderwood Park anymore. The memory of those crude, watching figures, the implications of that disturbed earth, have tainted it forever. Sometimes, when I see Tom or Emily playing in our own backyard, a shadow will cross their faces, a fleeting recollection of the secret garden that wasn't a garden at all. And I wonder who tended that awful place, who crafted those silent, sorrowful effigies, and what secrets lay buried beneath the leaves. The woods keep their counsel, but the whispers of that place, the feeling of those unseen eyes, still haunt the edges of my quiet suburban life, a chilling reminder that darkness can take root in the most unexpected of gardens. The rain started without warning. One minute I was enjoying my Saturday afternoon jog through Harmon Park, and the next, the sky cracked open, unleashing a deluge that turned the dirt path into mud within seconds. I sprinted toward the nearest shelter, the old stone pavilion near the west entrance. I'd passed this structure hundreds of times, but rarely ventured inside. It was a relic from the 1930s, built during the GPA era. A circular stone building with several alcoves around its perimeter, and a domed ceiling that collected echoes like secrets. Most joggers preferred the modern shelters with their vending machines and charging stations, but beggars caught in downpours couldn't be choosers. I ducked into the first alcove, breathing hard, my soaked t-shirt clinging to my skin. Water dripped from my hair into my eyes as I tried to catch my breath. The pavilion was eerily quiet despite the drumming of rain on its roof, the kind of quiet that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. That's when I heard them. "We need to move it tonight." A man's voice, low and gravelly, coming from the alcove adjacent to mine. "The quarry's the only place deep enough where no one's gonna find anything. You said that about the last one. And look what happened." A second voice, younger, nervous. "Kids find shit in the quarry all the time. Not if we weight it down right. This ain't my first rodeo." I froze, afraid to move, afraid even to breathe. Had I just heard what I thought I heard? I don't like it, Marcus. That quarry's got too many eyes on it nowadays. Those urban explorer types with their cameras. You got a better idea. The first voice, Marcus, cut in sharply, because I sure as hell ain't keeping the body in my garage another night. The smell's already starting. Body. The word landed like a physical blow. My stomach clenched as I pressed my back against the cold stone wall, willing myself to disappear into it. Fine. But if this goes sideways, it won't. We meet at midnight. Bring the tarps and those cinder blocks from your dad's construction site. The rain intensified, drowning out their words for a moment. I strained to hear, my heart hammering so loudly I feared they might hear it. "Still in the trunk?" The younger voice again. "Where the hell else would it be?" "Jesus, Trent, pull yourself together." I needed to see their faces. Carefully, I edged toward the opening of my alcove, trying to position myself to catch a glimpse without being spotted. The pavilion's interior was dim, but not dark enough to hide completely. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the space. In that instant, I saw them, two men in the alcove across from mine. One older, heavy-set, with a salt and pepper beard, the other barely more than a teenager, thin and anxious, with a neck tattoo partially visible above his hoodie. They were huddled together, heads bent low, a map or diagram spread between them, and they were looking right at me. I jerked back into the shadows, but it was too late. Our eyes had met in that flash of lightning. "Someone's here," the older one, Marcus, hissed. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. I bolted, sprinting out into the rain, feet slipping on the muddy path. Behind me, I heard shouts, then footsteps. Hey! Stop right there!" I ran blindly, the rain stinging my eyes. The main park exit was too far. I veered off the path, cutting through a dense stand of trees. Branches clawed at my face and arms as I pushed through. A hand grabbed the back of my shirt, yanking hard. I spun, slipping in the mud, going down hard. The younger one, Trent, loomed over me, eyes wide with panic. "Marcus, I got her!" I kicked out, catching him in the knee. He howled, stumbling back. I scrambled up, heart pounding against my ribs, adrenaline surging. "Please," I gasped. I didn't hear anything. I don't know anything. Bullshit. Marcus appeared through the trees, moving with surprising speed for his size. "You heard enough." I was just waiting out the rain. I insisted, backing away. "I don't care what you're doing. I won't." "Shut up," Marcus snarled. He reached behind his back, and the glint of metal sent ice through my veins. I turned and ran again. No direction, no plan, just pure animal instinct. The park had never seemed so vast, so empty. Where was everyone? The weekend crowd, the other joggers, the families with picnic baskets, all driven away by the sudden storm. A fallen tree blocked my path. I leapt over it, but my foot caught, sending me sprawling onto the soaked ground. Pain shot through my ankle as I tried to stand. Footsteps approached, slower now. They knew I was injured, knew I couldn't outrun them. "We just want to talk," Marcus called, his voice deceptively calm. "Clear up this misunderstanding." I limped forward, searching desperately for somewhere to hide. The old maintenance shed appeared through the curtain of rain. A small, dilapidated building rarely used since the new facilities were built. I darted inside, easing the door closed behind me. The interior was dark and musty, filled with rusted tools and forgotten equipment. I moved deeper into the shadows, behind a stack of rotting wooden pallets. Outside, voices. She went in there. "You sure?" I saw her. The door creaked open. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness, sweeping across the cluttered space. "Listen, lady," Marcus called. "We're not the bad guys here. We just need to know what you heard." I held my breath, pressing myself against the wall. My hand closed around something cold and metal. An old wrench, heavy and solid. "This doesn't have to get ugly," he continued, moving deeper into the shed. "Just come out, we'll talk." The flashlight beam passed inches from my face. My grip tightened on the wrench. "Found her phone," Trent said from somewhere to my left. I patted my pocket. Empty. It must have fallen during the chase. Well, Marcus said, his voice closer now. "Emily Wilson, according to this driver's license in the phone case. 1242 Oak Ridge Drive. My address." They had my address. "Nice house, I bet," he continued. "Got family there? Husband? Kids?" The threat hung in the air between us. Something inside me snapped when the flashlight beam swung toward me again. I didn't hide. I lunged, swinging the wrench with all my strength. It connected with a sickening thud. Marcus stumbled backward, flashlight clattering to the ground. "You bitch!" he snarled, hand pressed to his bleeding temple. I ran for the door, but Trent was there, blocking the exit. He grabbed my arm, twisting until I cried out in pain, the wrench falling from my grasp. "What do we do with her?" Trent asked, voice shaking. Marcus touched his head wound, examining the blood on his fingers. His eyes, when they met mine, held no humanity. "Same thing we were already planning tonight. Just got one more package to deliver." I fought then, with everything I had, kicking, scratching, screaming. But a hard blow to the side of my head sent the world spinning, darkness creeping in at the edges of my vision. The last thing I remember is being dragged through the mud, rain washing away the blood and tears on my face. I woke to darkness and the smell of gasoline. My head throbbed, and when I tried to move, I discovered my hands were bound behind my back. I was lying on something hard and cold. Metal. The trunk of a car. Panic surged through me. I twisted, trying to free my hands, but the restraints only cut deeper into my wrists. The car hit a pothole, sending me slamming against the trunk lid. We were moving. Going somewhere. The quarry. They were taking me to the quarry. Harmon Quarry had been abandoned decades ago. Its steep walls and water-filled depths, a forbidden attraction for thrill-seeking teenagers. The city had tried to fence it off after several drownings in the 90s, but there were always new holes cut in the chain link, new ways to access its dangerous beauty. I'd been there once, in high school, watched boys dive from the high rocks into the murky green water below. Never imagined I might end up at the bottom of it. Think Emily. Think many newer cars had emergency trunk releases. A glow-in-the-dark handle designed for situations exactly like this. I rolled onto my side, scanning the darkness, and nearly sobbed with relief when I spotted the faint luminous outline. The car slowed, turning onto what felt like a rough road. We were getting close. I had to act now. Rolling onto my back, I maneuvered until I could reach the release with my bound hands. It took 3 agonizing attempts, but finally, I pulled it. The trunk popped open with a soft click. Rain and night air rushed in, along with the realization that the car was still moving. I had seconds to decide. Jump now, onto an unknown road, possibly breaking bones, or wait until we stopped when they would be ready for me. The car began to slow. Decision made. I rolled out, hitting the ground hard, shoulder and hip taking the brunt of the impact. Pain exploded through my body as I tumbled down an embankment, rocks and branches tearing at my skin. When I finally stopped rolling, I lay still, rain washing over me, every breath sending shards of pain through my chest. But I was free, at least for the moment. Shouts erupted from the direction of the car. Flashlight beams swept the darkness. She's out. Find her. I forced myself to move, crawling through underbrush toward the distant glow of lights. Civilization. Safety. Every movement was agony, but the alternative was worse. The sound of pursuit grew closer. They knew these woods, knew where I would likely go. I changed direction, heading toward the quarry itself. It was risky, but they wouldn't expect me to go there. Not when it was their intended destination for me. The quarry came into view, a great gash in the earth, its water black as oil under the clouded night sky. The rain had stopped, but the rocks were slick and treacherous. One wrong step would send me plummeting. I found a crevice between 2 boulders and wedged myself into it, trying to control my ragged breathing. Flashlight beams swept the area, getting closer. She can't have gone far, Marcus growled. Not hurt like that. Maybe we should just go, Trent suggested, his voice high with stress. Cut our losses. With her alive out here, knowing what she knows. Are you stupid? They were close now. Too close. I pressed myself deeper into the crevice, feeling the sharp rock dig into my back. Check down by the water, Marcus ordered. Trent's flashlight beam disappeared down the path toward the quarry's edge. Marcus remained, methodically sweeping his light across the rocks where I hid. The beam caught something on the ground near my hiding place. My blood ran cold as I realized what it was. A small trail of blood. My blood from the cuts and scrapes of my escape. Marcus followed it with his light, directly to my hiding spot. Our eyes met. Found you, he said softly. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Marcus lunged for me. I scrambled backwards out of the crevice. My foot slipped on the wet rock. Marcus grabbed my shirt, but the fabric tore as I fell, not down into the quarry as I'd feared, but onto a narrow ledge below. Marcus lost his balance, arms windmilling as he teetered on the edge above me. I pressed myself against the quarry wall, searching desperately for a way up or down. The ledge extended about 20 feet to my right, ending at what looked like a small cave entrance. Above me, I heard Trent arrive. Where is she? Down there. Give me your hand. I didn't wait to see more. I moved along the ledge toward the cave, each step a gamble on the narrow, slippery surface. Behind me, a scream, a sickening thud, then silence. I froze, then slowly turned back. Marcus was gone. Trent stood at the edge, flashlight pointed down, face a mask of horror. Marcus? He called. Marcus. Only silence answered. I continued toward the cave, moving as quietly as possible. Behind me, Trent's panicked breathing grew louder. This is your fault, he said suddenly, his voice carrying clearly across the open air. He'd still be alive if you just minded your own business. I reached the cave entrance, barely more than a crack in the rock face, but large enough to squeeze through. Inside, the passage widened slightly. My bound hands made it difficult to navigate, but I pressed on, feeling my way through the darkness. The sound of pursuit stopped. Had Trent given up? The passage curved, then opened into a larger chamber. Faint light filtered in from somewhere above, just enough to see the horror surrounding me. Bones. Human bones. scattered across the cave floor, and newer remains. A partially decomposed body against the far wall. Face unrecognizable, but clothing still intact. A woman based on the long hair and small frame. I stumbled back, a scream building in my throat. This wasn't their first victim. This was a dumping ground. Quite a collection, isn't it? Trent's voice came from the passage behind me. Been adding to it for years. Dad started it, actually. Taught Marcus everything he knew. I turned slowly. Trent stood in the passage entrance, flashlight illuminating his young face. No longer fearful, but calm. Almost serene. Marcus was getting sloppy. He continued, panicking over every little thing. He wasn't cut out for this, not like me, not like Dad. Understanding dawned. You pushed him. A small smile. Accidents happen around the quarry. Everyone knows that. He stepped closer. Something metallic glinting in his hand. A knife. You know what the truly scary part is? He asked conversationally. No one's going to look for these people. Most of them, no one even reported missing. The forgotten ones. That's who we take. There are people who will look for me, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Are there? He tilted his head. The jogger with no wedding ring, who runs the same lonely path every Saturday. No car in the parking lot. You live close enough to walk. No phone calls or texts coming in while I had your phone. I don't think anyone's going to miss you until Monday when you don't show up for work. By then, he gestured around the cave. You'll just be part of the collection. He was right. My parents lived across the country. Friends would assume I was busy with weekend projects. Neighbors barely knew my name. I backed away as he advanced, searching desperately for a weapon, an escape route, anything. Why? I managed. Why do this? His expression changed. Something dark and hungry flickering behind his eyes. Because I can? He said simply. Because watching the light go out of someone's eyes makes me feel alive. He lunged. I dodged. But the confined space left little room to maneuver. The knife caught my arm, slicing through skin. Pain flared, hot and sharp. I stumbled, falling backward over the remains on the floor. Trent stood over me, knife raised. Nothing personal, he said. My hand closed around something solid among the bones. A femur, long and heavy. I swung it with all my remaining strength, catching him in the knee. He howled, dropping to the ground, the knife clattering beside him. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the knife, cutting through my restraints in frantic sawing motions. Trent recovered quickly, launching himself at me. We grappled on the cave floor, rolling through dirt and bones. He was stronger, but I was fighting for my life. The knife was knocked away in the struggle. Trent's hands found my throat squeezing. You should have just kept running, he gasped, tightening his grip. Black spots danced at the edges of my vision. My hands scrambled blindly through the dirt, searching for something, anything. My fingers closed around a rock. With the last of my strength, I brought it down on his temple. Once, twice, a third time. His grip loosened. His eyes went blank. He slumped to the side, blood pooling beneath his head. I crawled away, gasping for air, trembling so violently I could barely stand. But I had to move, had to get out. It took hours to find my way out of the cave, through a different passage that led to the quarry floor. By then, dawn was breaking, pale light spilling over the scarred landscape. I staggered to the main road, bloody and bruised. A passing truck driver found me, called for help. The police came, then paramedics. They found the bodies in the cave, 7 in total, in various states of decay. Cold cases from across 3 counties, finally solved. They found Marcus too, broken on the rocks below where he fell, or was pushed. I never told them my suspicions about that. Let Trent take that secret to his grave. It's been 6 months. The nightmares are less frequent now, but they still come. In them, I'm always running through the rain. Always hiding in that cave of bones. Always fighting for my life. The police told me I was lucky. That most victims of the quarry killers never had a chance. But it wasn't luck. It was the rain. The sudden downpour that drove me into that pavilion at exactly the wrong moment. Or maybe the right one. 7 families have closure now because of what happened that day. I still go to the park sometimes, but I never jog there, and I never, ever take shelter in the stone pavilion, no matter how hard it rains, because you never know what conversations you might overhear. Conversations that were never meant for your ears. Conversations that could cost you everything. The trail fades. and the shadows lengthen. 7 stories plucked from the wild heart of our parks. Do you feel the trees watching now? The unsettling truth is that nature, in its indifference, can be the perfect accomplice to human darkness. Which path taken tonight will linger in your thoughts? Unburden your fears in the comments. The rustling leaves are listening. If these forays into natural dread have gripped you, then subscribe to Nightmare True Horror and like this video. Until the next time you seek solace among the trees, remember that not all who wander are lost. Some are waiting.